So you had his arm and he broke away, though, correct?
No.
Isn't that what you just said?
No, I let him go.
You let go. Yeah, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. So Mr. Depp's your boss. You'll do what Mr.
I am
Depp
back
wants, correct?
in my office. Sorry, it's a little dark.
No,
It's not easy to get Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
not easy.
Okay. Now, can we play Exhibit 380A, which is already in evidence?
Plaintiffs or defendants, I'm sorry.
It's defendants, Exhibit 380A.
What is this? Sorry, what is this?
And this is a recording from Australia, and it's just of Mr. Depp.
I don't think that's an evidence here.
Hold on, it's not an evidence.
Are plaintiffs Exhibit 380A?
I don't believe there are any recordings from Australia in evidence here. I think this.
There definitely is. It's just of Mr. Depp.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't have 380 in evidence.
You have to make sure, buddy.
380A.
Oh, now we can't hear. Hold on. I apologize.
It was never admitted. It was.
They're arguing.
Your Honor, the recordings from Australia have other voices on them.
We're only asking for it's only the clip of Mr. Depp.
Okay, wait, I have, it's actually plaintiffs 380A, minute 33 to 34.
What's the foundation for using it with this witness?
He was at the house.
It's in evidence,
It's in
that's
evidence.
fine. So you're playing that clip, correct?
Correct.
That is on plaintiffs.
What you are and who you are and how you fucked me over and make me feel sick of myself.
Sounds
There's
pissed.
still a lot left in the day. Maybe you should dye your hair. I see your ribs.
Did you hear that, Mr. Connolly?
I'm sure this is
I did,
also
yes.
hard for her.
And that was the sort of condition Mr. Depp was in when you saw him at the house, correct?
Yes, yes,
Mr. Depp was upset and angry when you saw him at the house, correct?
absolutely, yes.
Okay. Now, did you take Mr. Depp to the hospital?
Along with others, yes.
Is it your testimony that Mr. Depp was coherent at the hospital?
Yes.
Let's show
What do you think
defendant's
she's
exhibit
writing?
370. I'd just like you
Writing
to
a
look at
lot.
something for a moment.
I'm just curious.
I'm not putting it in, I'm not publishing it. I just want to show him a document. Defendant's exhibit 370.
Your Honor, I'm going to object on foundation grounds. The witness is not even copied on this document.
I'm going to ask him a question and ask him if it refreshes his recollection. That's all I was going to ask him about. I can use any document to refresh.
Wait, if you want to approach for a second, just see what.
Yeah, things are getting a little spicy because Rottenborn's trying to assert himself and use things that are not necessarily in evidence. Here's another example in the last couple of minutes. So I'm not impressed with that. He's so quick to object to the other side doing that, but he just thinks, oh, well, I'm just going to do this, that, and the other. That's not consistent with the attitude that he has towards the other team. He expects, anyways, it's just interesting. Comes across in a demanding tone. Sound familiar?
You can take the document. Switch document.
You can take it down. Was Mr. Depp's finger was filled with dirt, grime, and paint when you saw it?
Yes.
Oh, here we go with the finger.
And now, you say you saw no bruises or cuts on Amber on March 8th, 2015, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true that your main concern was Mr. Depp and getting him out of the house, correct? You weren't concentrating on Amber, correct?
That's not true.
I was
He's
totally
concentrating
not-
on their
if there was any mark
safety,
on
both
Amber's
of them.
face, I would have picked that up in 2 minutes.
As you're
Sir, I've
trying,
been chained to the Home Office.
as you're trying to pull Mr. Depp out of the house, you're scanning Amber for bruises and cuts?
That's in
Not
both
scanning,
people's
but I'm looking
interest,
at it.
best interest to have
As
Amber
you're
in the
moving,
house.
Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
Yes,
Right.
yes. How do I know what she's going to lift?
Right.
I'm watching her. When I move a client from a bar situation, a house situation, I watch what's happening around me.
But you're not,
I know where the client is. The client's with me.
right, the client was with you and you're not scanning, you didn't scan Miss Heard's body for.
I scan everything. I
You
watch
scanned everything on her
every move
body?
somebody makes. Not everything on her body.
No.
She's wearing long sleeves, from what I recall.
Not everything on her.
And at the hospital, the doctor was told that Mr. Depp cut his finger with a knife, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And you understand that the damage at the house, at Mr. Depp's rented house amounted to about $100,000, correct?
Objection
Well,
calls for
some-
speculation.
I'll allow it. That's fine. Next question.
This lawyer's coming across very
In
entitled to me
Hicksville, other than when you first arrived,
as well.
you didn't go to the trailer that Mr. Depp and Amber were staying in, is that right?
Only when I delivered them to it.
Right. And then after you delivered them to
That-
the,
when I delivered them to it, when we first got there,
right.
we went inside and had a look around. Yeah.
But after that, you never went inside the trailer after that, correct?
Correct.
So you have no idea what went on in the trailer between Mr. Depp and Amber, isn't that right?
I was told.
But you have no idea, you don't have any personal knowledge as to
I
what
never
happened.
seen it.
Right.
No, I never seen it.
And you have no idea how much damage was done to the trailer, correct? Personal
I
knowledge.
do have an idea.
You have no idea what happened to Amber in the
This is
trailer,
reminding
isn't
me
that
of
right?
your fellow lawyer.
That's correct.
Of the
And you
fellow
don't,
lawyer
and
that
you
goes
talked
on,
about
drones
that
on
there
and
was
on about the
tension
makeup.
between Amber and Mr. Depp. You don't know what started the fight, correct?
Doesn't matter what
Correct.
started the fight.
Did you see Mr. Depp grab another woman's arm before they moved off to the truck, before the fight started?
No.
Interesting.
Okay. Were you with the company when were you with the group?
So interesting.
No. I was maybe
Either way, with
20
abuse
feet away
victims, when they go
observing.
into the
That's
hospital,
my
it's
job,
very common
not
that
to
they'll
get
lie
involved.
about
I
how
don't
they were
sit with,
injured.
my clients in a personal situation. I've just
Male
observed.
and female.
Now, you testified that at times you saw marks and bruises on Mr. Depp, a fat lip, I think you said. You don't have dates for those times that you saw that, right?
I don't recall. No, you're talking.
Well,
it's a
one
long
was on
time
his
ago.
honeymoon, honey.
And you testified in the UK in this. You testified in the UK, correct?
Correct.
And you gave a witness statement too in the UK, correct?
Correct.
And you never testified to seeing any marks, bruises, or injuries on Mr. Depp, isn't that right, in the UK?
I wasn't asked in the UK.
But you never testified. You never testified to that, right?
I wasn't asked.
Okay. Now,
Good.
you talked about a private plane that you saw a plastic lighter bounce off of Mr. Depp's chest, correct?
Correct.
And you said you saw Mr. Depp smirking and then he said, "Was that it?" Is that right?
No.
Okay. You don't know what started the fight there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you talked about at the lofts, I think you called it, in Los Angeles, you saw a Coke can get thrown somewhere in the vicinity of Mr. Depp, correct?
I seen a can,
Right.
not a Coke can. I couldn't tell you what can it was.
Okay. And you don't know what happened before you saw the Coke can get thrown, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you talked about this picture of that you took in Southeast Asia, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you never mentioned in the UK matter or in your witness statement Mr. Depp having scratches and bruises on the train, correct?
I was never prompted. I was never asked.
And your point
You gave a
is,
witness statement
Rottenberg,
that gave the what you saw in the relationship between Amber and Mr. Depp, and you never talked about bruises or cuts on Mr. Depp in Southeast Asia, correct?
No, I wasn't asked that.
Okay. Now, you said, only Johnny could make requests for a private dining car, isn't that right?
I said that.
Could, only Johnny needed a private dining car. Miss Heard didn't need a private dining car, correct?
Doesn't sound
That would
like
be
he
correct.
said
Yeah,
that.
would definitely be correct. Yeah, only Johnny Depp would need a private dining car, but Johnny doesn't want a private dining car.
Okay. Now, you were not present in Miss Heard and Mr. Depp's cabin on the train, right?
No.
And if a fight
That's
occurred,
correct, that's correct.
and if a fight occurred in the cabin, you'd have no way of knowing about it, right?
I wouldn't know.
And you don't know if Mr. Depp was strangling Miss Heard, do you?
No, I wouldn't know.
You don't know if Mr. Depp
Okay,
had his
how is
shirt wrapped
that
around
allowed
his
to
neck,
be
do you?
said? How is that
Objection,
allowed to be said
speculation,
right there?
cumulative.
Oh, no, I wouldn't know. The only reason I would know anything in that cabin.
No, okay,
is if
you
the
wouldn't know.
cabin door was
You
open or
answered,
closed.
sir,
Sorry.
you answered that.
All right, we can move on.
Okay.
Don't upset a Scotsman, man. Let him have his little rant.
And-
that guy just.
If we could put up, please, plaintiff's exhibit 120, and this is at 190, and I believe 120 has been in evidence
Well, I have
before.
120A, 120B, and 120C.
So I think this would be 120D, if it,
120D?
yeah.
D.
And I would, Mr. Connolly, I'm asking you questions about the fourth one down. Do you see that?
Yeah, it's not very clear though. I can't.
I'm going
It's
to
tiny.
objection. The document is hearsay. I don't know what the exception would be.
Okay, if you want to come forward.
This judge must be so tired of these. There's so much evidence to go through. It's unbelievable to me that all these texts and videos and such are admissible as evidence. It's really. And the fact that they're broadcast on TV, YouTube, whatever it is that people are watching this on is not common in the rest of the world, but so some of Rottenborn's argument in the recent here is a lot of blame, victim blaming almost. What I'm hearing is that you don't know what happened before she threw the lighter. You don't know what happened before she threw the can. Almost, you don't know what the argument was about that constitutes someone to throw something at someone else. It's interesting because I think if it was the other way around, it'd be a lot more hesitation to use that type of an argument. But he is her lawyer, and he's pissing this wetness off, though, I tell you.
Take it down. Mr. Connolly, you agree that Ms. Heard's been nothing but respectful and professional to you, correct?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, redirect.
Nice. Whatever happened there, they weren't allowed to do the rest.
Mr. Connolly, very briefly, when you were in Ms. Heard's presence in the house in Australia on the day that Mr. Depp lost his fingertip, how far away were you from Ms. Heard?
On the exit, on the egress, about 3 feet, 4 feet at the most.
Can you estimate for us about how long you were in Ms. Heard's presence?
Oh, you know what? Best way to do this is think about it and count it out, okay? "15 seconds, 20 seconds.
How was the light?
Well, it's Australia. The door is massive. It's a wall of glass behind them. The light is absolutely fine. You couldn't get better.
All right, I have nothing further.
All right, is this witness subject to recall?
I think so, yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Conlon, since you're subject to recall, do not discuss your testimony with anybody and don't watch anything about this case, okay? But you're free to log off today.
Your Honor, yeah.
All right, you're free to log off today, though,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, your next witness. Mr. Jenkins? Yeah. Mr. Jenkins, can you hear me, sir?
Afternoon. Yes, I can, Your Honor.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir. All right. If you raise your right hand for me, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Jenkins. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
And could you please state your full name for the record?
Starling Jenkins III,
And Mr. Jenkins, where do you live?
Los Angeles, California.
And what is your occupation?
Executive chauffeur, security.
And how long have you worked as an executive chauffeur and in security?
Executive chauffeur for 30 years, security for 8 years.
And what occupations did you hold prior to working as an executive chauffeur and in security?
Route sales executive and United States Marines.
Mr. Jenkins, do you know the plaintiff in this case, Johnny Depp?
Yes, I do.
And when did you first meet Mr. Depp?
1993.
How did you first meet Mr. Depp?
He used delivery service to transport him to and from.
So in the 30 or so years that you've known Mr. Depp, what services have you performed for him over the course of that period?
Child care, animal care, personal assistant duties, security, and transportation.
And could you estimate approximately how many hours per week would you provide those services to Mr. Depp?
40 to 60 hours.
And can you describe generally your interactions with Mr. Depp in the time that you've worked for him?
Pleasant, always upbeat.
Do you know the defendant in this case, Amber Heard?
Yes.
And when did you first meet Ms. Heard?
After the filming of the Rum Diary project.
And can you describe generally your interactions with Ms. Heard?
Pleasant, cordial, very respectful.
And so in your time working with Mr. Depp, did you ever observe Mr. Depp's and Ms. Heard's interactions with one another?
Yes.
And can you describe those interactions generally, please?
Very cordial, very aware that people are around them, very, very friendly.
Did you ever see them argue?
Yes.
Most
Can you
likely.
describe what you observed about those arguments?
It would be initiated by her. She would try to engage with him. He would tell me to turn the music up.
So where did these arguments take place?
Sorry.
In the car.
Interesting.
Do you recall how many
Although a lot
times
of
you
people
witnessed them argue?
corroborating what Johnny Depp has been
Twice.
claiming, and honestly, these people are hardworking people.
Mr. Jenkins, turning your attention to
They're
April
under
21st,
oath, and
2016, can you tell the jury what
they
you
need
recall
their
about that
jobs.
day?
I'm sorry, but
Could you repeat the question, sir?
Sure. So turning your attention to April 21st, 2016, can you tell the jury what you recall about that day?
It was the birthday party being held at the penthouse.
And when you say the penthouse, what are you referring to?
It's the Eastern Columbia building.
And what were you doing that evening?
That evening, I was assigned security on the detail.
Were you inside the residence while the birthday party was taking place?
I was in the CP, the command post that's stationed on the same floor, right outside of the elevators.
And did you interact with Ms. Heard at all that evening?
Yes, I did.
Can
In
you,
regards to getting her clients keys, parking, making sure no one else was on the floor that wasn't invited to the party.
were there any issues at the birthday party at the time that you were present at the penthouses?
No issues except for the boss did not show up.
And do you recall what time you left that day?
11:15 p.m. that evening.
And Mr. Jenkins, what happened the next day, April 22nd, 2016?
I arrived early, 10:45. Went upstairs to the penthouse. I was informed by Amber that she got in a fight with Johnny last night. She threw his personal property over the balcony into the streets, knocking the bar.
And when you say personal property, what are you referring to?
His phone, wallet, credit cards, passports, everything that's in his wallet.
Did Ms. Hurd say anything else to you about this altercation?
Nothing except they were fighting.
So what did you do after Ms. Hurd informed you that she had thrown Mr. Depp's personal property off the balcony?
Formulated a plan with Norm from the office to use the Find My Phone app, hit the streets, and try to get lucky.
Did you end up finding Mr. Depp's phone?
Yes, I did. In Skid Row, probably 6 miles from the house.
And who had the phone?
Someone probably picked it up.
Homeless gentleman, unhoused
Homeless
gentleman.
gentleman.
I approached him about the phone. He was honest. He returned it. I gave him a reward for it.
And what was the reward?
Probably money.
$420, chicken tacos, chips, apples, Fiji water.
That was nice.
After finding Mr. Depp's phone, what did you do?
I returned to the penthouse, showed the phone to Amber that I retrieved it. I left it in the CP for the evening security to return it to Mr. Depp.
So after figuring out things with the phone, what happened next?
What happened next is I walked Amber to the car. We got everybody in the car. She's on her way to Coachella. I went back to the penthouse to retrieve the dogs and the luggage.
Were you also going to Coachella with Ms. Hurd?
Yes, I was. I was the transportation for Amber and her friends while she was at Coachella.
So how did you get to Coachella?
Drove the SUV provided by Johnny, put the animals and all the luggage in, and headed out to the venue.
And the morning of April 22nd, did you see any injuries on Ms. Hurd?
No marks, no injuries.
So
This is an
driving out to
extremely
Coachella,
consistent
did anyone
answer
drive with you?
by many
I was in the
witnesses
car alone
and
except for
staff.
Lawrence.
And how did Ms. Hurd get to
Did not
Coachella?
Perceive any or see
She
any
drove a Mustang.
Was anyone else in her car?
She was with, I believe,
Any
her
injuries?
sister and one other friend, her assistant, Savannah.
And do you know how many days Ms. Hurd and her friends were planning to stay at Coachella?
So the following Monday, I believe it's the 25th of April, we departed.
And do you recall where Ms. Hurd was staying at Coachella?
We were staying at the Parker boutique hotels there in Palm Springs, outside of Coachella.
Were you also staying at the Parker Hotel?
I also stayed there.
And so did you attend Coachella for work or for pleasure?
For work.
for work.
And what was your job that weekend?
Provide security and transportation, animal care, Amber's rolling assistant, take care
So
of
he
her,
picked up the
whatever she
dog
needed while
poop
she was
and
there
did
at
all the
Parker,
heavy
and,
lifting.
out
This
traveling.
man's a hard worker.
Do you recall what time approximately you arrived at the Parker Hotel on April 22nd?
Around 5:30ish, maybe 5:45.
And what did Ms. Hurd and her friends do that evening, April 22nd?
That evening,
Let me guess.
we arrived. We were assigned the rooms. We went with the staff of the Parker Hotel around to the suites where we were staying. They let us in. We let all the luggage in, and we proceeded to plan for that evening to depart by 7:15ish to get to the festival then.
And how did Ms. Hurd and her friends get from the hotel to the festival that evening?
I drove them directly to there.
And did you have any discussions with Ms. Hurd on the way to Coachella that evening?
We had a conversation pertaining to the surprise she left in the boss's bed prior to leaving the apartment.
And when you refer to the surprise in the boss's bed, what are you referring to?
The poop?
The defecation.
And what did Ms. Hurd say about the defecation in Mr. Depp's bed?
A horrible practical joke gone wrong.
Interesting.
Mr. Jenkins, what observations did you make about Ms. Hurd at Coachella in April 2016?
She had no worries. She was there to whoop it up. It's her birthday. She's with her friends.
And how often were you with her that weekend?
Was with her every day. She went to the venue from the time that we interacted with the wallet incident, the night before at the party, all the way until Monday. We returned with the pets and the luggage.
And did you observe anything about Ms. Hurd's health that weekend?
She got sick.
Do you know
She
what
got sick at the venue second night.
Do you know what caused Ms. Hurd to be sick?
She was eating the magic mushrooms and drinking red wine on an empty stomach.
And how do you know that she drank red wine and took magic mushrooms?
He probably had to get them for her.
I saw the room service and I went to their room to collect them to take them out that evening.
So is that
I had
something?
it in the car.
Excuse me. Is that something you witnessed?
I witnessed it.
And what did you do in response to Ms. Hurd being sick at Coachella?
I collected her, got her in the vehicle. She didn't want anyone else to know that she was sick. Take her back to the Parker alone. I took her to the 7-Eleven where I retrieved hydrating fluids, Advil, and let her have those. Got her back to the Parker, got her into the suite, and then went back to pick up everyone else.
And Mr. Jenkins, when you said Ms. Hurd got sick, do you recall what her symptoms were?
Yeah, she was throwing up.
Mr. Jenkins, did you see any injuries of any kind on Ms. Hurd April 22nd, 2016?
Let me guess. No.
No injuries.
I'll sustain. So, yes.
Well, he was.
What about the rest of that weekend, Mr. Jenkins? Any injuries that you saw?
Sure. He would know.
No injuries.
Have you ever witnessed any physical abuse between Mr. Depp and Ms. Hurd?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Nothing further.
All right, cross-examination.
All right, Roddy, what you got? Or is it
Good
Roddy?
afternoon, Mr. Jenkins.
Good afternoon.
So just to be clear on the chronology, you met Mr. Depp in 1993, is that right?
Correct.
And you've worked for him ever since?
Off and on? Yes.
Okay. And your salary's paid by Mr. Depp, correct?
Salary? No.
You receive pay for the work that you do for Mr.
Yes.
Depp, correct?
Of course. Yes. Of course.
And when Mr. Depp's security is your highest priority in your job, correct?
Yes, it is.
You're loyal to Mr.
It is
Depp.
in his family.
He also took care of Amber.
You're loyal to
her
Mr.
friend.
Depp, right?
Johnny Depp wasn't there.
Yes.
Now, I want to turn to the night of April 21st, 2016.
I don't believe
You-
that these
Just to recap, you said you
hardworking
were working a
people
security
would
shift at
lie
Amber's
under oath,
birthday
even for
at
Johnny
the
Depp.
Eastern
I'm
Columbia
sorry,
building
I don't buy
that
it.
evening, correct?
Correct.
And you said that your shift ended around 11:15, correct?
Correct.
And you said the boss still hadn't shown up by the time that you left the Eastern Columbia building, right?
Correct.
So you have no idea where Mr. Depp was or what he was doing from 9:30 p.m. that evening until at least 11:15 when you left the Eastern Columbia building, right?
No, I do know what he was doing. He was attending to his mother.
You weren't with him.
I had information.
Okay. All right. That's information that you received, but you have no personal knowledge of that.
I have no reason to doubt it. It came from Sean.
Okay.
I have no reason.
Okay. So Mr. Bett told you that?
The boss is outlet.
Right. Mr. Bett told you that he was tending to his mother that night?
He didn't say mother, he said the boss was out late. I'm aware of what the situation was, the time frame. He's with his mother.
Okay, all right, interesting. Okay.
Rottenborn liked that answer for some reason. I didn't see that guy's testimony, so I don't know why he liked that.
And did you have any understanding that he had a meeting with his new business manager earlier that evening where he was told that he was running out of money and that his taxes hadn't been paid in years? Did you have any understanding of that from Mr.
Objection.
Bett or anyone else?
Objection. Foundation calls for speculation.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
And you didn't see Mr. Depp that night, right?
No, I did not.
So you came back the next morning to escort Amber to Coachella, right?
Yes.
And you say that Amber told you that she had thrown Mr. Depp's phone off the roof?
Correct.
And did you come to understand that Mr. Depp had thrown her phone off the roof that evening prior to when Amber threw Mr. Depp's phone off the roof?
She informed me of that.
Okay, she informed you of that. So when you went outside to look for Mr. Depp's phone, you weren't looking for Miss Heard's phone, were you?
She had her phone. She had her phone. She was trying to re-download and back it up.
Okay, so you were only looking for Mr. Depp's phone when you went downstairs to try to.
She
You
already
found it
had
with,
her
with
phone,
an unhoused
so-
person. You said, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and did I hear you right that you said it was 6 miles away where you found the phone?
Correct.
It actually wasn't 6 miles away. It was actually right below the building, the ECB building,
No, it was
correct?
not.
Okay,
No, it was not.
can you pull up, does he have a way to see documents that, just him, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please pull up the witness statement, Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Jenkins, do you remember giving testimony on Mr. Depp's behalf in the UK trial?
Yes, I did.
And you gave a witness statement first in writing, correct? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then you were examined by the attorneys in the trial, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can you see on your screen the statement do you see a witness statement?
Yes, I see it.
It's a witness statement that you wrote and signed as part of the UK trial on behalf of Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If you can scroll, please, to page 3 of the document. And, Mr. Jenkins, I'm going to read you what you wrote in paragraph 13.
Okay.
And we can go from there. On paragraph 13, you wrote in your witness statement in the UK trial, the Find My iPhone application indicated that Johnny's phone was somewhere on the streets below the balcony of the residence. Did I read that right?
Somewhere, okay.
If that's what it says, that's what it says. I'm telling you, the phone was in Skid Row.
Okay,
I have
so
a photo of the gentleman that found it. I have the location where the phone was found.
isn't
I
Skid
don't
Row
really
just a few blocks away from the
understand
Eastern Columbia
what the
building?
big deal is about this point.
No, it's on 6th and Main, I guess, depending on what area you are.
Okay, so one of these two sworn statements, either what you just said in court just now, that it was found 6 miles away, or this, one of these is false, correct?
It's just inadequate as far as
yeah,
the location.
exactly.
The location is not
Accusatory,
below
eh?
the
It's really,
penthouse.
I
It's
think
not
I'm
on
really
Broadway.
hard to
It's
remember
not
all
on
this
Broadway.
information,
I
but hey,
have
that's
a
just
house
me.
man, and then he lives off of Skid Row.
Okay. Now let's move on to Coachella, please.
Yes.
You were with Amber and her friends that weekend at Coachella, and you
Yes.
testified a little bit about what you saw. Is it fair to say that Amber and her friends were having a good time that weekend?
Yes, it was.
And there were thousands of other people at that music festival too, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you aware that Amber's sister Whitney was pregnant and sober that weekend?
Wasn't my information, wasn't my knowledge.
Were you aware that Amber's sister Whitney threw up in a parking lot that weekend?
What does that have to do with this case?
No.
Okay. To your knowledge and understanding, Mr. Jenkins, There's nothing wrong with wanting to spend time with your friends at a music festival after being abused by your husband, right?
Did you just say that out loud after being abused by your husband?
What abuse?
How is that?
It's not an abnormal thing to want to be around your friends, correct?
She was
after being
partying it up
abused
with her
by your
friends. She was
husband?
partying it up.
And you said you didn't hear anything
Why
about,
is no one
she didn't say
objecting to
anything
that?
to you about domestic violence having taken place, correct?
Nothing in the car pertaining to that.
Would it surprise you that she might not want to talk to someone who had worked for her husband for around 23 years at that point about domestic violence? Would that surprise you?
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
Sustain the objection. Next question.
Ms. Heard texted
Why
you
was there not
on
an
May
objection in
12,
this? I don't
2016,
understand.
asking you to call her, correct?
Correct.
And you did not bother to respond to that text, correct?
Correct.
And that was the last communication that you had with her, correct?
Correct.
Now, you weren't, just to be clear, you weren't at Amber's house on Orange Avenue in March 2013 when Johnny was there, correct?
I might have driven him to the location. I'm familiar with the address.
But you didn't enter the house at any point in March 2013, correct?
Depending on if he had luggage or gifts going upstairs, I might have.
But you didn't hang out with him inside the house, right?
Hurry up and wait in the car, sir.
And you weren't at the Hicksville Trailer Palace in late May or early June 2013, right?
No.
You weren't on a plane flight from Boston to Los Angeles in May 2014, correct? With Johnny and Amber. You weren't you weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in the Bahamas in August 2014, correct?
Correct.
You weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in Tokyo in January 2015, correct?
No, I was not there. Correct.
You weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in Australia in March 2015, correct?
Correct.
You weren't at Thanksgiving with them in Penthouse 5 of the Eastern Columbia building in November 2015, correct?
I believe I was there.
You
I
didn't.
might
You
have
weren't.
been assigned the detail. I don't have the schedule, but I might have been assigned the detail that day.
You were-
Thanksgiving, it's a holiday.
Sure, sure. You don't have any specific recollection of that one way or the other, though, correct?
I would probably say I was on duty that day.
Okay.
It's the holiday.
Okay. You weren't celebrating Thanksgiving in Penthouse 5 with them that evening, correct?
I was in the CP,
Okay, and that's a separate room, correct?
separate room on the same level. Correct.
And you weren't in the Bahamas in late December 2015, correct? With them?
Correct.
You weren't in the ECB with just the two of them the night of December 15th, 2015, correct?
That is right before the Christmas party, I believe. Correct.
And finally, you weren't in the penthouse of the Eastern Columbia building on the night of May 21st, 2016 with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct.
And you'd agree that you have no personal knowledge of what went on between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard behind closed doors, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right, redirect.
Just very quickly, Your Honor, do we have Mr. Jenkins' witness statement? Or perhaps?
We're going over time today.
And if we could go to the third page, please. Mr. Jenkins, directing your attention to paragraph 13, which Mr. Rottenborn had you look at just a second ago.
Yes.
He read the first sentence of that witness statement. The Find My iPhone application indicated that Johnny's phone was somewhere on the streets below the balcony of the residence. Walked out. Could you please read for the jury the second part of
I had a
that
feeling
paragraph?
there was more information there.
I walked out onto the street, did not see the phone. I then asked several homeless people if they had the phone. One homeless man admitted to me that he had the phone, returned the phone to me in exchange for the following: $425 in cash, 3 chicken tacos, 2 bags of chips, 4 apples, 2 apples, 4 bottles of water.
And so do you recall where you found the iPhone that day?
Yes, I do.
Objection asked and answered.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Mr. Jenkins, moving to Coachella, Mr. Rottenborn asked you about Whitney Hurd. Do you know who that is?
Yes, I do.
Do you know the difference between Whitney Hurd and Amber Heard?
Yes, I do.
And who was sick that
One
day?
is the boss's wife. One is the boss's sister-in-law.
Who was sick that day at Coachella?
Amber was sick.
Oh, they're trying to say that Amber
nothing further.
wasn't
All right,
sick.
is this witness subject to recall?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Jenkins, you're free from testimony, and therefore you're free to do whatever you need to do, or you can watch the proceedings. It's up to you. But you're done for today, though. Thank you, sir.
buddy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you to the court.
All right, have a good day.
I'm not one to side, especially in a abuse allegation case. I'm just seeing
right,
it
I think
and
it's
hearing
close
it
enough
and
to
observing
5:30
it
that I think
as
we've had
a
enough
human being
of
and
a
as a
week.
professional.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to go ahead
smelling
and
something's
be
rotten.
done with the testimony for this week.
Rotten in Denmark,
Although,
whatever
since
that
I won't
is.
see you till Monday, I want to give you the long jury instruction that I give you every Thursday evening, just so we all remember our
Do any
responsibilities, okay?
Research.
So at this time, remember that you are not to read anything about this case. You are not to watch anything about this case. You are not to listen to anything about this case.
Don't watch this live
This
stream.
applies to television, newspapers, magazines, the internet, and any online sites. Further, you are not to read, watch, or listen to anything about this case on any social networking sites such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, blogs, or similar sites. In addition, you must not communicate with anyone about the case, whether in person, over the phone, by email, text, or instant messaging, or by any other electronic or non-electronic means. This includes your friends, family, coworkers, acquaintances, and strangers. I also instruct you that you cannot do any research or make inquiries about this case, whether online or by any other means. For example, you cannot look information up on the internet that is related to this case or related to the persons involved in this case, nor may you consult dictionaries or other reference materials. What you learn about this case is limited to what you learn in the four walls of this courtroom when proceedings are underway. You also may not communicate about this case or the persons involved in this case with your fellow jurors, okay? Hope you have a good weekend. It's supposed to be great weather on Saturday. Go outside, get some fresh air, okay? And just enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you back Monday at 10, okay? Thank you so much.
Wow. What a rigorous trial this is. I would say, honestly, these jurors, I don't even know how that's possible to not see anything, but, I'm sure they're doing their best to remain unbiased.
All right. And as always, Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, please do not do any posting on social media and do not talk to the press. I appreciate it. And have a good weekend. For the attorneys, tomorrow. What time? How many? Did we do our homework this
They
week?
have to go through their
We did. Work in
evidence,
progress.
probably.
Okay, so are we still doing 19 tomorrow? '20s. You added one for me. That's lovely. Okay, great. So we'll do 20 tomorrow. So I would suggest 8 o'clock.
This lady needs to
Everybody
go
here
to
at
the
8?
spa.
Sound good? Okay, we'll be here at 8 a.m. and we'll just do them until we're done. So bring a lot of meals, okay? All right, we'll see you tomorrow then. Thank you. Have a good evening.
She's like, I'm out. I don't blame her. Man, these guys must be exhausted. Anyways, quick reactions from me. I would say, regardless of whether or not some of these people were employees of Johnny Depp, I still want to reiterate something that I said another day, is just that these people have known, there are still validity in their character witness of him and his behavior. One, for the reason of the amount of extended time that they have known this man. And so the pattern that they have seen in a long-standing context, not just a short period of time. And the consistency has been there with the reporting of who instigated fights regularly. And that was the female involved in this case. So again, I am, you can ask anyone that knows me. I'm a huge advocate of women and women's rights. I am a woman, of course, and this is not something I take lightly, but the more I watch, the more I'm becoming convinced that my observations so far, anyway, are that someone was not happy with the way the relationship was going, and used her platform to control what she had left to control, and that was speaking out and making accusations publicly. Yeah, I'm not sure who's set to be up on the witness next week, but I'm just trying to think if there's any other reactions I want to say before I log off as well. Yeah, that was really hard to see that picture of Johnny's face on his honeymoon. It would have been equally as hard to see Amber's face like that too on her honeymoon. So I'm not saying that because of him being a male or a female. I'm just saying that's really sad and really telling with the volatility of their relationship. And I'd also like to add that I have not witnessed every part of the testimonies of this trial. I don't know who has, but anyone in the therapy realm that I've witnessed and listened to their testimonies, including the marriage therapist that saw them several times together, and the psychologist, had similar rapport and reporting about Amber Heard's behavior. And I remember the marriage therapist mentioning several times in her testimony about how Miss Heard would continually interrupt and cut Mr. Depp off, and that she didn't feel like he really had a voice in the relationship, and that she had a machine gun type style of talking, which was aggressive. This is what I'm kind of paraphrasing what the therapist quoted in her testimony. Yep. Actions speak louder than words. Hope you all have a good weekend. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share, and we will chat next week. Stay safe, everybody. Bye.